Well, thank you guys for coming to this forum. This is the first slide, and we called it Everything Old is New Again because of what Liz and Tiffany said so eloquently. Even though it's just been a few months, we've changed during the sabbatical time, Reverend Mary has changed during the sabbatical time, and we're going to discover how those changes happen and how we want to make choices about them as we move forward when Reverend Mary gets back. One of the things, first of all, I wanted to thank the Sabbatical Committee, which is Curtis Tanner, Tiffany Felch, Dan Donahue, Kirsten Hill, and Polly Taylor. They have done a beautiful job preparing us for sabbatical. They have done just excellent work, and a lot of it preparing us for sabbatical, supporting us during the sabbatical. And then today, I'm going to talk for a minute or two, and then we're going to move into a discussion about after sabbatical and how that looks, led by the Sabbatical Committee. We are so grateful at OUUC to have so many talented people who are willing to help the church. So that's wonderful. Next slide, please. One of the things that I realized after I was thinking about how often we've had good wishes for Reverend Mary and wished her recovery and restoration and some benefit from her sabbatical. And then I ran across this thing that she had written for us, for our hopes during the sabbatical. And so what she wished for us is that we have space for reflection, be curious about what emerges, embrace the questions that arrive, and this is a difficult Unitarian thing, be patient about the answers. May you be courageously open to discovering new ways of doing things. May your hearts and hands be open to new gifts that are offered and are needed. May you take time to rest and offer rest to others. And may your body, mind, and spirit be renewed. So she made the same wish and blessing for us that we gave to her during her sabbatical. And so I think it's going to be exciting when she comes back and we can use all these new things together. One of the things that I have become increasingly grateful for. This is my second year on the board. My name is Susan Moon. I forgot to say that even though I wrote it at the top. Still forgot to say it. And I'm the board president this year, and this is my second year of being on the board. And one of the things that I'm increasingly grateful for as I belong to OUUC is the kind of leadership model we have. And in the next slide, you can see I stole this from another Unitarian church somewhere on the East Coast, and it is what we really do all the time, and especially in the last few months. It's called collaborative leadership. And if you look up there, you can see, the ministry on the right. So that's Reverend Mary, and that is Reverend Monica. We've been so blessed to have her during the sabbatical. But you'll notice that that entire mountain next to the ministry piece includes our clergy and all of our staff. And we mentioned them, Troy and the music program, Reverend Sarah and her wonderful community building, and Marie, who helps the building, and Isaac and Rosie, who run the office and take care of business matters. All of those people have really stepped up and been leaders. And then on the governance part, which is what we're going to talk about the last couple minutes, is where the board is in. Is the category the board is in. But the important part of this slide is the congregation below. And you notice that the congregation is the base of everything. Everything flows up out of the congregation and flows back into the congregation. And as a congregation, we are called to minister to each other, to help each other discern what the direction is we should go next. Oh, and the governance, which is what I do, so that's why I didn't think of it. And so the governance part, which is what the board takes care of, is our part of the collaborative leadership. And in that part, we have a board, and I'm going to just describe a little bit of the structure of the board so that you understand that the board is also always changing and coming up with new ideas, but also always has some history with the previous ideas. And you can see that teams are what works on the right side with the ministry and management. Many of you are probably on teams. And others of you are probably on committees, and the board is probably the only people that knows the difference between those two things. But committees typically work with the board and are approved by the board, and the Sabbatical Committee is an example of that. And then Marie and the people that handle buildings and grounds are on the team side. And there's actually a slide that's a little awe-inspiring that shows how many boards and teams and committees and everything else we have. And I was going to show that to you, but then I didn't want you to be overwhelmed. So, so if you go to the next slide, the way that the board works, and these pictures are all taken from the internet, on the OUUC website, and if you haven't looked at it yet, we have a brand new website designed by the tech team. It's beautiful, it's easier to use. You'll be able to find the board pictures there under who we are. The way that the board works is there need to be 9 members, and there are 3 new members every year and 3 members leave. So there's a constant rotation through the board cycle. And as I said, this is important, and I think Liz did such a beautiful job in the service talking about how you need new ideas and new leadership, but you need to remember what your history is as well. And so in this case, we elected a new set of 3 people, kind of, just at the start of the sabbatical. And I say kind of because the way that the governance manual works is that you are allowed to serve 2 3-year terms consecutively on the board, and then you have to take a year off. And Arlene Kohlrich, who was the president last year, was so excited about some of the new things that we were talking about doing that she volunteered to serve again. So you can see Arlene on the bottom started in 2021, and her term should end in 2027. That's a lot of service. So along with Arlene, who was re-elected this year, we added Sally Al-Hadif and Dieter Jacobs, and they're at the very top. And their terms start in 2024 and go to 2027. And then the group that I'm part of was elected a year ago, and that is Rich Coleman. And I have to say, I couldn't find when he actually started, but Rich was already a terrific secretary by the time I started, so I think he also started a second term, but I didn't put it on the slide. So Rich and then Carmel Shields and I started, and so our terms will be over in 2026. And then finally, the sad part of the 3 people whose terms will end this year include Jeff Goltz, Lee Doyle, and Tammy Black. So there are 9 of us. We are here to help support you. I know that governance doesn't sound exciting, but what is really exciting about it is the clearer your governance is, the easier it is to follow, and the more smoothly things work, and we're really working on that this year. We have such a great set of teams underneath us that what we're trying to do is approve the way that things are done, but let other people handle the nuts and bolts so that the board can do forward leadership, think about how we want the future to be aware of anything that we could improve, and really kind of be the dreamers of the church instead of just trying to figure out if we need to order new chairs. So, so think about that as you think about what you want to do in your own service for OUUC. And also know that any of us at any time are receptive to emails or talking to us or asking us questions. And the board meetings are open to everybody. So please come, participate, and understand that we are all part of this amazing organization and that the congregation is the base of all that. So I'm going to have the sabbatical team now take over, and we're going to talk a little bit about what to expect when Reverend Mary returns. And again, I'm so grateful for your presence here and for your attention. So who's coming up next, or do you know what you want to do? Curtis?
Yes, Curtis.
I pretty much know not me.
So thank you, Susan. Thanks, folks, for being here this afternoon. I'm Curtis Tanner. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member of the Sabbatical Committee. I just would ask us to reintroduce ourselves, the other members: Tiffany Felch, Kirsten Hill, Dan Donahue, and Polly Taylor. It's really been a privilege and a pleasure to work with you folks. Thank you so much. Thanks to the board and the congregation and to Reverend Mary for asking us to serve in this position. Speaking for myself, I definitely approached the responsibility with some trepidation, recognizing the important role that Reverend Mary serves in our congregation and being asked to help prepare the congregation for her time away, both sort of logistically and also spiritually and emotionally. And again, the notion that we would be going with her on this journey of introspection and reflection and renewal. And I appreciate that the many folks who have answered that challenge and spent time over the last 4.5 months, doing our own work. I feel that the congregation, I believe that the Sabbatical Committee shares this. We didn't just survive, we thrived. I think that's fair to say. We thrived. Many important things happened over the course of the summer. Many life events happened for members of the congregation. In that happening, all of us have grown and changed. And I would just ask each of you to reflect on what maybe you've taken away over the last 4.5 months and how you feel our congregation has grown over the last 4.5 months. Certainly, we look forward to Reverend Mary's return, and I appreciate the notion that that re-engagement will be with a person who has gone through their own change as we have. And I think it's important that we continue to move forward as a congregation, not looking back to the kinds of relationship and the kinds of ways that we relied upon Reverend Mary in the past, but looking forward to our own new roles in shared ministry. I think the thing that has been most amazing about this past 4.5 months is how many people, staff, the board, lay leaders, individual members have really leaned into the mission of shared ministry. I think it's been amazing, and I believe it helps us understand the strength of our community. Of course, relies upon the important presence of Reverend Mary, but it's not, we are capable of doing great things ourselves. And when the time comes for Reverend Mary to move on, we will move on and we will do well as well. Reverend Mary will not always be here. Let's see. Do you want to say a little bit about some of the things that are coming up? And we have some questions that we could discuss, but I don't have much of a prepared form. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of us or receive comments, but Tiffany wants to talk a little bit about some of the practical things going forward.
Yeah, we have some details about how the next 2 weeks and beyond will go. So as you heard in the service today, next Sunday's service will be welcoming Reverend Mary back, but she will not be preaching. It will be primarily a music service. So she gets the day off on her first Sunday back with us. And then on November 7th, that's a Thursday, the Sabbatical Committee, with the help of the Worship Arts team, are going to be hosting a Thursday community dinner. So that will be a time of celebration and eating, and all are welcome to attend for food and fellowship to that Thursday, November 7th. And it will also be right after the election, so we'll either be celebrating great joy or leaning into community for support that day. Then on Sunday, November 10th, will be Reverend Mary's first time back in the pulpit. So we're excited to hear more about her sabbatical activities and her travel, her learning and integration over the coming weeks and months as she shares with us. And now I think we want to kind of open the floor for some discussion. We have some prompts that we wanted to kind of check in with the congregation, see how everybody's doing. Some questions for consideration. What lessons have we learned, either individually or collectively, during the past 4 months of the sabbatical? We're interested in hearing others' perspectives from your teams or from you individually. So I think we're going to have a microphone. So let's see. And then the other ideas, how can we prepare for a successful reentry period for Reverend Mary? How can we be most supportive and help with that re-engagement into the OUUC community? And then as we think forward over the next year and beyond, how can we continue to build upon the shared ministry that we've been developing over the last few years? So those are some prompts to consider. And does anybody want to share?
Well, I'm Gail Reedy, and currently I'm the chair of the Leadership Development Committee. Other people call it the nomination team. But for several years, we've been asked to really look at the issue of leadership and develop some opportunities for leadership development in our community. It's been a tough thing to think about and do during COVID particularly, but what I want to say is this year, we've started looking at the board first as opposed to going right to the congregation and getting the board to start thinking about what skills and qualities they think are needed right now for the new members that will come on next spring. And that's been something new that we've started. And I've really appreciated Susan and the board's leadership in engaging with us. And we're developing new paths in opening opportunities for thinking through communication and leadership styles with the congregation. So that's been one of the big things from my perspective that's happened in the last 5 months.
Hi, I'm Arlene Kohlrich. I found when Reverend Mary was gone that the anxious people were still anxious and that we did not have Reverend Mary to focus all that anxiety on. And the rest of us took it on and accepted it, and we calmed the anxiety. So I think the biggest lesson we can take from Reverend Mary's sabbatical is that she does not have to be the focus of all the anxiety in the congregation. We can handle it among ourselves.
I'm Connie Rule. I'd like to segue from what Arlene said to look at that in a different way. I've been a part of this congregation since 1978, and over the years, 2 years ago, I was away and lived in a town where I attended a very large Unitarian church, and then whenever I travel, I go to other churches. And in each of those congregations, if I've had a chance to have conversations with people, I get a sense of how central the minister is or isn't to that congregation's thriving. And I think what we've had an experience with for these last months is knowing that, yes, we have a minister, but we are not necessarily needing to identify with that minister. That is not who we are. We are a community. And the exhibit that Susan presented on a slide this morning, I think, is a beautiful representation of that. So I hope that we have come away from this experience understanding how central, yes, the minister is, but the church is the community and its congregants.
I just want to add to that. Reverend Sarah had to step up a lot, and she and I worked on several things during the sabbatical, and I have been so grateful for her ability to build community and for those wonderful Thursday night dinners that I often am not able to come to because of work, but I can see the community that builds, and I hear about them from everybody, and I just think that Reverend Sarah, I'm hoping, receives some extra blessings because she's been so wonderful during the sabbatical. And I think sometimes she makes things look easy because she likes to feed people, and we forget how much work it is. So Reverend Mary is wonderful, and I think Reverend Sarah is a true gift to us. So I just wanted to say that out loud.
Hello, I'm Lee Doyle, and I'm coming to this discussion from a different perspective. I'm a newbie here. I've only been part of this congregation for about 6 years. I've never been a part of any religious community ever before. And what I saw when I first joined was I've sensed and heard a lot of rumbling about what we should be doing. And then I began hearing from new people about what we could be doing. For me, Reverend Mary was installed not long after I became a member, and she became an agent of change. I have seen remarkable change in this congregation. The sabbatical team really does personify the kind of change and leadership skills we have in the congregation. Their planning for the sabbatical was pure and elegant. So I'm welcoming Reverend Mary back into what I believe is going to be a changed organization based on her skill working with us. I look forward to what we all can do in the future in building not only a new congregation, but a new, let me not go too far, but a new society. So I love being a part of this UU congregation. Welcome back, Reverend Mary.
Hi, I'm Beth Johnson, and I would like to say that, excuse me, I think that everyone on the Sabbatical Committee has done a fabulous job. I also want to commend the board, Reverend Sarah, and all the people who work so hard to develop such a lovely community. I had said in my life that I never wanted to be a part of a religious community again, but I have, and I love it here. And the thing that I think is that as Reverend Mary comes back and we look at her change and we look at our changes, that we have the grace to allow the changes to be there and to happen. Oftentimes we have a tendency to want to keep people in the same situation in our minds and in our emotional makeup and how we relate, rather than letting them be who they have moved into. And the same with the congregation. Let us all change and flow together and have the grace to allow that. So that's what I have to say.
Well stated, thank you. Seems like we have some more questions in the room, and I also wanted to create space for if we have anybody online, if you have any questions or input, please raise your hand and we'll be able to acknowledge you. You can speak, or we can. Okay, okay, thank you. Our microphone carrier has reminded me that if you can enter your comments in the chat, we can read them here in the room so all can participate.
I'm David Hare, and I've been in this church since it began, from the old church. And on occasion, I think 2 or 3 different occasions, I have gone to Mary with an issue that I seek resolution for. And on 2 of those, her, how can I put this? She was clearly an overload. She clearly heard me, but didn't feel that this was the time or the place to solve or to. So what I'm interested in now is what the committee, the committee's going to stay in practice, in use. Will she know to point me or anybody with questions she can't answer to that committee? Is this going to be conveyed to Mary in a way that she doesn't have to, that she doesn't carry on feeling that she has to solve all of the individual problems brought to her?
So is the question about the sabbatical committee?
Well, just who is going to be in place around her that she can then direct, oh, you need to talk to whoever.
So we on the committee here are going to be probably disbanding or sunsetting after a period of time. We are going to support Reverend Mary during her reentry into community life, and then I think our charge from the board has then been fulfilled. So there are systems and teams in place to address concerns. Most recently, the newest team that I'm aware of is the Healthy Congregations team. And I think we had a need in the community to deal with any kind of conflict that naturally comes along, because every community has conflict. It's healthy. It's part of how we grow and things. So I'm not sure what the nature of your concerns were that you brought, but it might be an issue for the Healthy Congregations team, or there's others in the room, or maybe the board has more input.
There's also a ministry support team that Reverend Mary has around her. Yeah, so she has people that she handpicked to bounce things off of and support her.
Hi, I'm Alex. Okay, so some of the notes that I made, and people were talking about changes and sharing the anxiety, and if you know my religious background, grew up in conservative Christianity, those type of churches have a minister funnel. The minister is the head of the church, and everything is funneled through the minister into the congregation. So the minister is at the top, and the congregation is fed through the minister, right? What I find here at OUUC is opposite, and that her sabbatical, especially when we first came here, it was still in that classical funnel shape through the minister. And I feel like what happened during the sabbatical is that we decentralized our dependence on a spiritual head. And like Arlene said, we started sharing the anxiety around instead of saving it for just that one person, right? So it should be easier on Reverend Mary, that we are not being as dependent on her for our every spiritual need, anxiety, or concern that we have more committees, that we have boards, that we have our own support system, that we can reach out and just spread the anxiety a little bit, spread the love, but to the work of the decentralizing our dependency on a spiritual head and having it from the congregation up instead of everything funneling through one central minister.
So a major discussion that's been taking place is leadership across the congregation. I think each individual has the opportunity to voice an opinion or voice a new idea that could be brought to the board or to the minister to evaluate. And I think that's a message that we want everybody to recognize, that we all are leaders in this community. Take responsibility for what we do.
There we go. I just wanted to let people know that the ministry team that Arlene was talking about is the pastoral care team. And you can send an email to pastoral care. Anyway, there's the email is on the website. And then those of us on the team will call, and we're able to talk to people and listen. And if it is something that we feel should go to Reverend Mary or Reverend Sarah or Reverend Carol, I mean, we have 3 people here that also, if I may say that, can help, then we do that. But being on the pastoral care team, I always feel like we haven't marketed ourselves very well, because a lot of people really don't know that we are here, and we are. And we are picked by Reverend Mary, and we are here as part of the team for the community.
Just a clarification, yes, there is the pastoral care, but you were talking about the ministerial development or support team.
Sorry, just one more commercial for what we'll be talking about at some other future Sunday board meeting. I think maybe what we've all been talking about too is our perception and definition of leadership. And we see Reverend Mary as the leader because she's standing up in front of us and talking from the pulpit. And I think what we've seen during the sabbatical is that leadership comes in a million different ways. And the way, to me, that you strengthen a congregation and make us forward moving and make us all feel like we have a part is by appreciating the leadership of the people who never ever want to stand in public and speak, but will make food for anybody. Or who, you know, maybe you don't want to. Yeah, I mean, so think about that as we move forward. And I know everybody's like, oh, but then I'll get nominated and I'll have to serve. But the dream of leadership that works the best is if you do something that excites you. The people, there must be somebody, those 5 people must really love books, brownies, and beans because they made it happen. And so what we're going to work on this year, and we're going to have, I just talked to Des McGarren from the Leadership Development Committee, we're going to do a board Sunday about leadership, to remind you all that the only kind of leadership is not what stands up in front. Everyone is a leader, and if everybody leads in the thing they're the most excited about, we have the kind of leadership we need for everything. So.
Any comments on line carbon? Okay. Any final thoughts? Any ideas percolating?
I'm Gail. I just wanted to your second or third question. I just hope we all, I mean, a couple other people said this, but I hope we all give ourselves and Reverend Mary the grace to move back into the congregation instead of all waiting for Dad to come home and, oh, I want to tell you what happened, you know, or Mom or whatever. Yeah, I just hope we all give her the grace and time to come back to us the way she is now. So that's what I hope.
I think we can all relate to coming back from a 1-week or 2-week vacation to all of the papers on our desk and the emails in our inbox, and it'll be a little bit like that, only on steroids. So, yeah, Jen.
Very logistical comment. So Sharon Love and I are leading up the stewardship drive this year, and we one of our first tasks is brainstorming what our new, tagline is going to be, and we need to get that approved by Reverend Mary. And so we did some email exchange with Rosie, like, should we do it now or wait till she comes back? And we were informed that Reverend Mary is not going to be reading any emails that come in before November 4th. So just in case you're wondering, that's the communication. So just want to pass that along.
You ready for me? Okay. I on the topic of both of those last 2 comments, I asked about this in staff meeting about, like, I feel like I have a couple of things that I want to share with Reverend Mary when she gets back, but I don't want to be part of that flood of overwhelming information of, like, here's everything you need to know that happened over the last several months. And I think it was Reverend Monica had a great suggestion about encouraging people to sort of write postcards with a little bit of information about, here's a thing I need to update you on, and it's not urgent, and I don't want to be part of a giant flood, and let her have the time to sort through those when she has the bandwidth and, take one thing at a time. I thought that was a great idea, and I would love it if the sabbatical committee could facilitate that in some way. Thanks.
much for that suggestion. That is something that we're considering. And we might be thinking about collecting those over the month of November or so, knowing that there's no rush and we all have grace for the process. So thank you, Teresa.
I have just a quick comment. My name is Jack, and when I was on the search team with you and Alice and James and Jane, we were a much smaller congregation. And it appears to me that we've grown so much, not just physically with the number of people we have that are now members of our congregation, but through the leadership of Reverend Mary. And we owe it to her to be kind when she comes back. That's my feeling, that we need to be kind and understanding and help her. That's my comment.
Thank you, Jack. I think that goes for all the time, right? Yeah. So as we wind down today, we've spoken a lot of things and we've connected, and isn't that the beauty of our community? Yeah. So thank you so much for the gift of your participation today and your time, and we'll continue this journey together going forward.
And join us for supper on November 7th. We'll be doing a vegan meal in honor of Reverend Mary's diet choices.